This is the San Diego Young Republicans podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the San Diego Young Republicans podcast, sponsored by IQ Podcasts and Brett Davis. There's been so much going on for politics, but irregardless of what's going on in the national level, even though it's very important, what's most important as for San Diego Young Republicans is to get active in our local communities. So we are very excited for this episode and highlighting actually one of our very own Young Republican candidates endorsed by us. So for those that don't know me, I'm Cynthia Kaui, and I'm the president and chairwoman of San Diego Young Republicans. I'm going to have my co-host introduce himself.
And my name is Zack, Gianino. I am the vice president of external affairs for the San Diego Young Republicans.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to have him introduce our guest today, Mr. Andrew Hayes. So Zack, kick it off.
All right. Hello, Andrew. Mr. Andrew Hayes. Thank you for joining us. It's exciting to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, so I really want to, Andrew, I've known you since probably 2011, 2012. So I can testify to much of your involvement and commitment to the community. So I'm very happy to have you on here. Both of us are very happy. I want to jump right into this conversation that we want to have with you. So I guess to start off the bat, we'll go right at the youth question. What motivated you to run for office at such a young age, and what unique perspectives do you bring to the table as a result?
Well, this comes from a kind of a philosophical belief that I have that, we as a party, and particularly as Republicans, we don't always do a good job of building our bench. And so for me, it's really about setting up a bench that I started, and you have to learn, you have to grow. So, I started as an activist in college, and then I went from there to work for the local Republican Party, walking precincts and doing all of that. And then I worked for local legislators and built my record up there, right? Learning, growing, helping people win elections, building relationships. This is a relationship business, like any business, right? Like any kind of environment, you have to have relationships in order to be successful. And then when I was looking at running for the school board in Lakeside, we had a gal who was a 24-year incumbent, older than I was at the time, by the way, and she had been on the board for quite some time. And I'm going, you know what? I don't want to see any of this crazy woke nonsense come into our schools. I'm done with it. I'm a born and raised kid here in Lakeside. So I decided I was going to run, and I won. And then from there, I said, look, I'm tired of what's going on in Sacramento and how it impacts local school districts. And so I want to run for the state legislature. And I truly believe along that time, though, I've helped mentor lots of young folks and lots of people and help bring them in to our local political arena. Why? Because we need a bench. And so for me, I want to see that. And I've had mentors that have done a great job of cultivating young people. And for me, I'm a person of faith, and so I believe that we need to replicate ourselves and we need to replicate leaders. And so, as a result of that, I want to run because I want to help build up the next generation, help be the face of that group of leaders. And so, for me, that's really one of the reasons why I've jumped in to the scene, as I really believe that we need a deeper bench.
Boy, do we! That is that is awesome to hear that, because I don't think every leader does that. And I don't think every leader has that in mind. And I think you leading with that is incredibly essential when it comes to, like you said, building that bench and setting ourselves up for success.
No, absolutely. I agree 100% with Zack. And a couple of fun facts about you. You were formerly on the San Diego Young Republicans board. I think you were the president. And what I think is...
I was not the president.
Oh, good to know. Thanks for fact checking me.
But I was on the board, and that's when I was first starting. And we, in fact, one of my favorite events that we used to do was the alcohol, tobacco, firearms event. We called it ATF night, and it was our big fundraiser of the year. And so one of the things I did with the time was help the board raise some funds, for that, right, for that event, and get, sponsorships and things. And that was how we were able to go out and help candidates. So I really enjoyed my time on the board, and I'm glad that you guys have just totally crushed it. I mean, you guys are just killing it. So I'm so happy that you guys are working so hard to help, extend the brand, because that's really important.
No, absolutely. So as a candidate for the 75th Assembly District, just to kind of break down like how historical could be when you win in November. Do you know, like, as far as the bench for Republican legislators in California, would you potentially be the youngest Republican legislator? Because I know right now for the Democrats, they have the youngest legislator in Sacramento. Do you know kind of like the institutional knowledge about that?
I think I would be the youngest Republican. I wouldn't be the youngest legislator. Alex Lee beats me by that. He's in Miltipas or someplace in the Bay Area with a bunch of wackos, but that's a different story. So, and he's quite interesting himself, by the way. But so I think I'd probably be the youngest Republican. I can't think. Josh Hoover is young. Greg Wallace is young, but I think I have them. I think I'm younger than them. So
Beautiful. So even though we, talked a little bit about the current youngest legislator in the legislature, he is a Democrat. But I think for those that don't know, as far as how the legislature is broken up, there is a veto-proof supermajority for Republicans and Democrats. So it's no surprise you do have to work across the aisle to get things done as a Republican. So what's your vision as far as being able to work across the aisle to achieve bipartisan solutions? Ultimately to see how we can get the Golden State back on track.
Yep. Well, first off, there's a phrase that has stuck with me since early in my career, which was "the tail doesn't wag the dog." And so, when you look at how Sacramento is, right, and we know what that is. It's exactly what you described, which is there's 2/3 supermajorities in both houses, and we need to take back one of those houses so we can block taxes and do all the things, policy initiatives we want to do. I point to my experience as a school board member, and I'll give you a little context and history. When I got elected in Lakeside, I was elected to a board that had 5 people, of course, 5 people board. I'm one Republican. There were 2 rhinos, and then there were 2 Democrats on the board. And I was kind of the middle, ground guy going, listen, we need to get something accomplished. I didn't run to get nothing done, right? And so I had to make some really cognizant decisions very early in my career about how am I going to get something accomplished with people who you put our profiles up together and we have nothing in common. And so I had to find those wedge points, those ideas where we could agree. And we did that, by the way. I did that on my board. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. There was a gal who was on the board who one of her family members was in the trades. And so I have always had it very close to my heart to do career exposure for kids in schools. I really think that we're not doing that enough in public education. I think we need to do more of that. I think we need to bring in all of our contractors, and particularly in working class communities like Lakeside, where a lot of our kids may or may not go to college, may or may not, want to do that. And so we need to be presenting them with those opportunities. And a lot of data shows us that kids are actually making career decisions in 6th and 7th grade. And when we have middle school kids that aren't even being told that there's a pathway for them, that there's an opportunity for them to make 6 figures and, not have to go and get a 4-year degree if they didn't want one, right? Then we got to tell them that. So I'm telling you all this because my board colleague had a similar, concern, similar close to her heart, because her brother works in the trades, right? And so long story short, is we were able to put together a career program, get grant funding, and then expand on that in our middle schools to where we can get elective programs and all these other things so that our kids in middle school could see what career opportunities, were there for them. That's a success. I mean, that to me is something where that's unifying. It's lifting people. It's about quality of life. It's about serving the district that you're elected to represent. It's easy to scream about problems. It's harder to solve them. And so, we see a problem. I want to fix it. I'll give you another example. We had a civics resolution that we passed in our district. Civics is very close to my heart. I want to see kids learn more about our Constitution and our Federalist Papers and all the fun historical things that our country was founded on. And I think our middle schoolers need to learn more about those things. So what we did is we passed a resolution that put together a whole new curriculum assignment for our kids and giving them opportunities to participate in Constitution Day and all these other things. And that really is helpful. Now, mind you, this was a board that was divided, that was supporting these initiatives. So those are just a couple things of how I would work. And really, it's about going to people and finding the ability to know what you and them agree on. So it's like sales, right? If you go into sales and you go to somebody's door and you say to them, hey, do you like Pepsi or Coke? And they tell you that they like Pepsi. You never bring up Coke again, right? So the point is that you find the issue that they care about and you don't worry about the other 65. Because in Sacramento, I'm going to be battling people who may like Coke, but I don't like Coke. But I'm not going to, that's fine. I like Pepsi. I'm going to battle them over that, right? But then I might find, hey, there's a guy who likes Pepsi. We're going to work together on Pepsi issues, right? And I simplify it just because it's so important, to see the picture. That's how you get something accomplished with people that, you could put two profiles up and we'd never agree on every issue. But it's about my district. It's about finding things that help lift people. So it's a long answer to your question, but I think it's so important because to me, it's a huge distinguishing factor between me and other people in our party and in local politics where they just want to scream about a problem. Look, I'm good. I'm fine with going to the press and screaming about a problem because that's one of the key things in the toolkit. I mean, that's absolutely an important part of the toolkit, but it's not the only piece of the toolkit. And so I always walk people through that because I have no problem holding a press conference and beating the crap out of people over crazy stuff. I've done it before. But you also then have to follow it up with some action and some tangible points. So to me, it's really about moving that needle. And that's how I would do it, is finding those Democrats in Sacramento where we agree that sex predators should not get dumped near school bus stops, that rural healthcare access is important, right? That people deserve and should have access to healthcare in rural communities that, by the way, in my district, don't look like others across the state, right? In my district, it's the working white poor. That's what it is in my district. It's not what you consider healthcare access issues. It's different. But if we can agree that people should have access to healthcare in rural communities, well, then guess what? I'm going to work to find those solutions because it impacts my district and helps my community. So those are just some examples of how I'd work with people. It's really about finding those issues that we agree on.
Yeah. And so let me ask you a little bit on that. Have you given thought or what specific policies or initiatives that you plan to champion if elected? And how do those align with Republican values? Because as important as it is to find that crossover, and it's going to be essential, where do you see that there's crossover that is still, really heavily embedded in Republican values as well?
Yep. Absolutely. Well, the first one is, I mentioned it a minute ago, is this sex predators nonsense. I mean, Prop 47 and 57 reform may fix some of it, but it's not going to fix all of it. The state has a huge problem of placing sex offenders near school bus stops. And people say, well, Megan's law protects from that. No, it does not actually, folks. It happened in my district where 6 serious sex offenders, and we're not talking about sex offenders, by the way, who when they were 17 got drunk and streaked through a park. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about people who are, serious offenders against kids, and they get to live in one house near a school bus stop. And we only learned this because it happened to us, right, in Blossom Valley. And I worked with a bunch of the local community activists, and we defeated that, and we pushed back on that. And in fact, I got a cease and desist letter from the state saying I violated the rights of the sex offenders. The irony of that is just crazy. But that just shows you policy that needs to change, right? So, but guess what? Democrats and Republicans agree sex predators should not be near schools. That can change. People are tired of that, and we can find Democrat support for that, and we can find independent support for that. So crime, I think, is one of the huge issues. Now, I want to tie this not just to the principles of our party, but also to the polling. So it's very important that we look at not just from our principles. I'm a principled guy. I'm always going to stick with our principles. I don't believe in raising taxes, and neither do the majority of Californians. Most tax initiatives that have been proposed have failed. The one that I defeated in Lakeside, guess what? It failed because it was a $66 million tax increase where 30% was going to consultants. Members of the public, voters, are tired of nonsense like that. They don't like seeing it. These are wedge issues that we can fight our principles and win seats. But see, it's so important that we look at what the polling says and what our principle says, and we align the two. So how am I talking about cost of living? Well, the one thing that we need to do is we have to make sure that we're tracking local initiatives. Look, legislators like me, we're going to fight hard in Sacramento against tax increases. But it's really about our local community. It's about legislators leading the charge and saying, listen, you're not raising taxes in your community. That ain't happening. It's leading the charge at the party saying that ain't happening. We're not doing that stuff. That's how local legislators can have influence over the cost of living in your community. So that's one thing, right? Not raising taxes. We need to stay strong with that. Crime, we need to stay strong with law enforcement. Now, the one thing that I really want to champion is getting rid of the sanctuary state nonsense. We have a border crisis here in San Diego County. And I was down at the border a couple of weeks ago, and it's scary, by the way. People are just walking across. And I mean, and the Border Patrol, and it's not to blame the Border Patrol. You know, I'm proud to be endorsed by the Border Patrol. But the point I'm making is that they are overwhelmed. And the reason in part is because our local law enforcement can't cooperate with them because of SB 54, which was the sanctuary state law that passed many years ago. My view is that legislators can introduce a bill all day long and scream on the floor about how the sanctuary state sucks. Now, what I want to do is unify the law enforcement coalitions to do an initiative and take it to the ballot and take it down. That's how you do it. See, it's just like what we did with Prop 47. It's no different, right? Prop 47 is spearheaded by law enforcement and local leadership, and all these people are spearheading it. I want to see law enforcement coalitions, which, by the way, I have relationships with all those folks. I want them to sponsor it. Why? Because they're some titans in Sacramento who can help move the needle with Democrats who are tired of crime too. And so to me, it all comes down to these issues. So border, crime, parents' rights is the last one. I'm tired of the transing of our kids. I'm over it. We've passed, the Parents' Bill of Rights in Lakeside. I want to take a similar model to the state, but this is on the polling too, right? And our party stands for parents' rights. Our party stands for parents' rights, securing our border, keeping, against illegal immigration, against tax increases, and supporting the people in blue. So all of those things I think we can do when I win and when I'm elected. And I just want to spearhead all those initiatives because I think we have to. Otherwise, our state's going to continue to go down the drain.
If I can just say, the way that these issues are articulated, I think makes all the difference. And like you just laid out, there are so many Californians, forget Democrats, Republicans, Californians that are just tired of whether they've been ignoring things for how long. They're just fed up. And I think there's a lot of narrative that needs to be pushed into the ether that kind of unites the party, unites the state on some of these issues that are clearly out of whack. So I love the idea of getting coalitions of law enforcement to lead that, because they're on the front ground seeing it, and that would make all the difference.
And you used a word that I just want to highlight because it's so important to me and how I operate, is coalition building, right? So I have always operated in building a team. When COVID happened and the state said, we're going to shut down your school district, we said, no, we're going to all band together. I knew that when school districts band together, what's Newsom going to do? Take us all on? No. So, you got to be together. You cannot just look. Normandy was not won by just one soldier fighting, right? It took a whole army of people to storm the beaches. We all have to be there united and together to do it. We have to have coalitions and allies to support things. That to me is so critical. And a lot of times politicians and leaders forget about building coalitions because they want to take credit for all the ideas. Listen, if I get something passed, I'll let somebody take the credit. I don't care because it got passed. What do I care? I just want to see something happen, right? So to me, it's a matter of let's unify, let's build those coalitions, because I love that. Because in my campaign and in any campaign I've ever been around, it's about having broad support, broad coalition. That's how you win, because people are different. Look, the Democrats are different from Republicans. Independents are different from Republicans and Democrats. All these folks are different, but we all do have some common ground on certain issues. And those are where I say, let's tie the polling to our principles and wedge them.
So that's a beautiful way to end today's episode. But last question before we log off, how can people get in touch and support your campaign?
Absolutely. My website is electandrewhayes.com. There's a website. That's the website. You can click on the link to support me and volunteer. We need a lot of volunteers. We're out hitting doors. We're doing all the stuff we need to do. And you can also reach me on my personal cell, which is out there in the ether. Call me anytime. But I'd be happy to chat with anybody, and electandrewhayes.com. And thanks for having me today.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, and I think one upcoming event that you have a parental town hall, correct?
I do, yes. Thank you for that. I have a town hall with County Supervisor Joel Anderson out in East County to go through parents' rights, and so parents know what rights they have and how the county can help, and what their districts can do to help ensure parents know what those rights are. So I'm excited about that, and that's on August 10th.
Perfect. And then what's the timing of the town hall?
It's like 9:30 in the morning.
Beautiful, bright and early.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you, Andrew, very much. This is, such an electrical episode. And like I said, Zack and I were so excited to interview you just because it is inspiring to be able to see one of our own young Republicans, take on one of the highest levels of government in California. So you're so inspirational, and we're just so excited to support you and very proud to endorse your candidacy. We're really looking forward to have our members do neighborhood walks, support all of your upcoming events. So that concludes our episode 4 of the podcast. For those that want to support Andrew, go to electandrewhayes.com. If you would like to check out all of our other endorsed candidates, check out all of our upcoming events, you can follow us on all of our social media and our website, SanDiegoYoungRepublicans.org. One of our upcoming events in August is actually going to be a volunteer deployment where we do a neighborhood walk for one of our endorsed candidates. And every month, every other weekend leading up to the November election, we're going to be doing these neighborhood walks for our endorsed candidates. So follow our social media, follow our website, SanDiegoYoungRepublicans.org for more information when all that is finalized. Other than that, thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for next month's episode and our next guest. Have a good night.